Thanks for coming out, everybody. It's good to see you. My name is Brian Levine. I'm a support engineer at Twilio, and I live right here in San Diego. So I'm happy to come and share with you guys what we do at Twilio. And that is SMS messages and phone calls. So I have a short deck here talking about what we do and then getting some code. So this is the Twilio homepage. And my text is missing on my side. What does Twilio do concisely? It provides cloud API for voice and SMS communications that leverage existing web development skills, resources, and infrastructure. So that is it in a nutshell. We provide telephony services, and one of the really cool things that we do is we integrate really well with web technologies. So it's really straightforward and natural to add these things to your site. It just works with any framework, definitely. With Ruby-based frameworks, but really, any kind of web technology. So PHP, Java, .NET, all that kind of stuff. So what can you do with Twilio? I'm just going to highlight a few of our customers. These are all customers, and show you kind of some use cases that you can attach telephony to your website. So the first one here is SurveyMonkey, and it's pretty straightforward. Phone polling, message delivery, things like that. You can have your site call out to somebody, read a prompt, say press 1 if you support, 2 if you, don't support it, leave a message, all that kind of stuff. All this stuff comes back into your web application as an HTTP request, so the information is delivered back to you. You can store it, report on it, etc. Next one, this is kind of cool. Here's a site somebody built called Auth Factor. It's a two-factor auth site. So this is cool. This is added security for logging into websites and whatnot. You might have your username and password, but you could also get a text message that says your login code is XYZ. It's good for 15 minutes. So you would have to not only have the login to a site, you would also have to have somebody's phone with them. So it's a great extra layer for security. Intuit's actually using this for online banking. Another cool use case. Here's another one. It's Media Temple. This is customer communication. So this is kind of a neat story. This hosting company was going to have a disruption in services for a bunch of clients, and there was kind of a panic about how do we communicate to this to our customers. We've got to contact hundreds of people. We have a small staff. How do we do this? And the problem was solved very quickly by one of the support staff there when they realized, hey, we can record a message, send it to the phone lines of all of our customers, deliver this message automated very quickly, make it personalized, have it be our voice, give the option to connect back, press 1 if you want to talk to an operator. So really cool way that a very difficult problem that could have been really time consuming for a small staff, just a quick script, and can accomplish that. Call tracking is another common use case. And this is really cool for marketers who might have different campaigns. You've got your web campaign, you've got print campaign, even within there you've got different magazines or whatever, radio. What you can do is use a different phone number for each type of media, and then those numbers all forward into the call center or wherever it is. But your app will get a notification in the middle. Here's the number that was dialed. Here's all the data about it, so you can do more detailed reporting, understand which your campaigns are working. It's like Google Analytics for phones. And all these sites, again, are Twilio customers. A lot of people can just kind of come in and set up your own site or business based on these cases. It's I'll get into the pricing in a little bit, but it's kind of a cloud model. Prices as you go, no big upfront fees, so it's very easy to get started. There's kind of new things that are being invented, such as group messaging. So GroupMe is a great example. They came up with a great new technology for SMS. It's SMS group texting and group SMS management. So here's a really cool innovation that was created using the technology. Finally, this is just a generic example of integrating to anything that's got kind of a webhook. Here's what we're running on our blog now. There's a weekly developer contest, and this week is FreshBooks, which is a great accounting software. And they have some simple hooks that you can plug into. So here's a quick example of how you can SMS payment notification in FreshBooks. So easy to integrate in a bunch of products. Finally, cool stuff like hardware hacks. Here's a guy who had a problem. He always forgot to close his garage door. So he built something with an Arduino that's internet connected. And he can query his garage door over SMS and say, are you open or closed? And if he figures that he forgot to close his garage door, he sends a message and the thing closes his garage door. And then he can also give access to people by their phone number to say who can open and close our garage. Similar kind of hacks have been done with like apartment buzzers and door locks. So the next thing is your app. If you probably sit and think for 5 or 10 minutes, you would almost certainly come up with a case where your app could benefit or innovate by having text or phone communication. Cell phones and SMS are totally ubiquitous. Everybody's got it all the time. And it's not only one-way communication. It's not only you can push a message out. Your users can interact with you, send data back. So you've really got a whole new way to communicate with the customer, to send them alerts, confirmations, anything like that. Just think about it for a minute. You could easily add on a cool new feature to your site. And again, the really kind of innovative part is the phone acts like another browser talking to your web server. So from a coding perspective, there's really not much new to learn. I'll get into that in a bit. So here's a couple of just nuts and bolts things. The pricing, it's this cloud model where there's no upfront fees. You get a $30 trial credit just by signing up. So you sign up, have no strings attached trial. Make calls, inbound calls for a penny, outbound calls for 2 cents a minute, penny per SMS. You can buy phone numbers, $1 per month for local, $2 for toll free. And the scalability is built in. So that's actually one of the biggest problems that this service solves is scalability on the phones. For kind of legacy model, it's challenging to scale because it often involves ordering phone lines from a carrier. So you have to pay a lot of money and wait a bunch of time to have some finite number of lines installed. Then you have to buy like a box, like a big IVR box or a phone system from Cisco or somebody. So you spend a lot of money up front for that. You have to configure it and deal with it. And then you get your system working, but you're still constrained by these number of ports you have. So scalability is a tough, expensive problem. You have to spend a lot of money up front. This service, Twilio, it's actually all hosted on EC2. It's all cloud-based. And there's basically no limit. When you're ready, you can rip your traffic up and down, and you can just scale as you go. So that's a big benefit and a big problem we're solving here. Okay, so how does it work? So essentially what happens is a customer calls a Twilio phone number. And what happens is Twilio accepts that call and makes a request on behalf of that phone call to your server. So it looks like a web request. So your server says, you specify the URL, it's a GET request to phone handler, whatever it is. So your app gets all the information about the call, who's calling, what number, there's some geodata passed, what area code are they in, what state are they in, and then can choose how it wants to reply. And we have a simple XML markup. It's called Twiml, Twilio Markup. So you prepare this Twiml, which is essentially instructions on how you want Twilio to handle that call, and you send it back to Twilio, who in turn handles the call according to your app's directions or business rules. So what's happening is all of the business logic is up to you, and this exchange goes back and forth. Somebody hits a button on the phone, Twilio tells your app, he just hit 4. You say, okay, I know 4 is, he wants to find his account balance. You look it up from your database. You tell Twilio to read text-to-speech to the customer, the balance, and Twilio does it. So it's up to you. It's like a scriptable phone or SMS. And you'll notice there's really only two technologies that are going on here. There's HTTP calls for the REST API. We've got a REST API that's most frequently used for sending calls and SMS. So you're creating resources in our end. There's also, you can also view or show, your previous call history and look at properties and things like that. But most often, you're going to make a REST call to say, create a new call to Twilio, which will then dial out. And then the other piece of technology is XML, which is when Twilio says, what do you want us to do? We read your XML reply and do it. So these are the only technologies. They're really kind of basic building blocks baked in everywhere. And it's really basic to get started. I mean, you'll see in the first few examples, there's, no Ruby gems, nothing. It's just, straight up web technologies, nothing too fancy. So here's just some common things you can do. Read text or play audio, record somebody's voice, and then bridge people, conference people, connect people. Just a quick look at the docs. There's the REST side of it. And so this is the HTTP side, and then the Twiml XML side. So that's it for the slides. So let's check it out. So here's the Twilio website, and I want to show you what I did is you can go in here and you can purchase numbers. So they have got an interface here where you can buy a number, you can search by area code. So very easily I can say, give me a local number. And this is all scriptable by API as well. Okay, so you click the button and it's now your phone number. It's $1 per month. So previously I purchased this number, and what I've done here is it just says, Twilio says, hey, when somebody requests somebody calls, what URL on your app do you want to hit? So what I've got here is a very simple Sinatra app, and just like I said, there's nothing going on here, nothing fancy, no gems. You can just see XML responses. So in this kind of first example, I'm just going to read text-to-speech, hello San Diego Ruby. And you can kind of see that here. Very simple. Oop, I took the hosting off. And I'm not sure if you're not using this shotgun to run your Sinatra app, it's great. It reloads your development rack environment so that you can go about making changes to Sinatra and you don't have to stop and restart it every second. So it's really useful. So here's this, and then my other kind of development trick I wanted to show you was this program called Local Tunnel, which is their slogans like make localhost available on the internet now, or I don't know. What this does is it proxies in. You say what port do you want it to run on? So I got this server running on 9393. So I say give me local tunnel 9393, and then it sets up a tunnel and proxies this public URL. So Twilio's got to talk to my server through the public internet, so this is a really useful tool to get that done. It's just that easy. So back here, here's my local tunnel /say. I'm going to save this, and that's essentially saying when somebody calls, pull up this piece of XML. So let's do it. And anybody else can go ahead and do it at the same time. So I just dialed the number. I'm going to put it on speaker here.
Hello, San Diego Ruby.
That's it. It literally takes seconds to set that up, and you can have controlling the phones from your app. So let's just build on that a little bit. That was say. Now let's look at play. So the only thing I'm doing differently here is putting in a URL of an MP3 file. You can see it can be hosted anywhere on the internet. It doesn't have to be on my server. Another kind of hosting trick is you can get public URLs from Dropbox, so it's really easy to take a local file and make it internet accessible. So that's what I've done here. So we've got our say, hello, San Diego Ruby, and now play for audio files. So all I have to do to attach this flow is update my Twilio URL, save it, and that's it. In real time, Twilio, when you call, is going to connect to /play. And we can hit the redial and see what happens.
Hello, San Diego Ruby.
So, I mean, all very easy. The simplicity is stressed. You know, you don't have to worry about audio encoding or things like that. We have a bunch of audio formats we support. Twilio encodes it for the phone, does all that. You can just do what you need to do. Building even further, let's say gather. So here's where some of the cool like web analogies come in. Just to show a couple more, you know, customizations, I got the documentation open here for say. So you can see Twiml voice say, text to speech. Some of these take attributes. So I'm throwing in a little bit more voice women. So we've got say voice equals woman. Now we're going to hear a woman. We've got gather, which is for keypad entry. And what you'll notice here is we've got action equals gather reply. So this ends up looking just like an HTML form. And that's kind of what's happening. The person types in a digit and it submits back to your app. And Twilio is going a long way to kind of mimic a browser. One of the cool kind of tips and tricks is Twilio will accept cookies that you set for it, like any good HTTP client. So because it supports cookies, you can use things like a session. And as you talk back and forth with the person, you can put their user ID in session and use that over the course of the phone call. So really integrating very closely with all the things that you already know. So gather action, gather reply, you know, method get, and then this is how many digits we want to gather. It's asking how many years I've been working with Ruby. And then here's gather reply. And here you can see just the building blocks of dynamic content. You know, it comes right in as a param. It's going to be a get param. So we will once again update our URL here. And please feel free to call along with me if you are so inclined.
Hello, San Diego Ruby. How many years have you been working in Ruby? I hear you've been a Rubyist for 4 years. That's fantastic.
So that's kind of it for the first code demo. So any questions up to this point? Cool. Well, we will keep cruising along. That was kind of the very simple, bare bones voice demo. We're going to build something a little bit more advanced over in this script. And this is all SMS based. So using a couple of interesting gems, you see we've got a Twilio gem, which is actually different than the one on the site. And we're releasing this one shortly, where the current gem is kind of more based on the URLs that we have. And it makes sense from a, you know, here's the resource URL for SMS. But this one's really, it's a bit more customized to Ruby REST resources and uses kind of the same language, where I'll just skip down a bit. Instead of worrying about a URL or anything like that, you would just say messages.create, which is, you know, kind of the vernacular. So, you know, let's look, as long as we're down here, look at the REST call. There's just kind of some setup stuff. And, you know, SMS messages.create. So this is going to post to SMS messages just with these 3 parameters, from, to, body. So who's it coming from, who's it going to, what's the message say? So just these few lines of code, and really one code doing the work, one line doing the work is all you need to send an SMS. And this would post out to our servers, and then we would say, oh, deliver this message to the person. Looking at the other things going on here, I've got data mapper going on. So once you start to, you know, Twilio is providing all the information about the calls and the SMS messages. So if you decide to log them, you can start doing cool things with them. So we'll take a look at that in a minute. Actually, let's look at the tables. I'm just mirroring some of the things. If you look in the Twilio docs, it says here is what our SMS resource looks like. And it's got, this is the internal Twilio ID. And then these 3 fields are the primary thing that's going on. So very straightforward. And then pusher app, which is a persistent connection from the browser. So it's like a socket connection from JavaScript to this company Pusher. So what you can do is tell Pusher that once all these web browsers are connected to Pusher, you say, Pusher, I want to send a message out. I want to push a message. And since it's a persistent connection, it pops up right away. There's no polling. There's no AJAX. Kind of cool. So let's get to it. So here is our incoming hook. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, first run this different app, and then set Twilio to say, when you send a text message, here's the voice URL. There's a different URL for text. Send the information to this handler that I'm defining here, SMS incoming. So what's going to happen is Twilio is going to end up posting to SMS incoming. And what I'm going to do is log the message to the database first. And that's totally, simple here. It's just pulling from the params that were posted. And that saves in the database. Then just I'm going to do a reply. So just to kind of illustrate, something dynamic, you could, whatever your logic here you would do, but I'm looking at the area code and customizing where is the person, where is your phone from. And here is the XML reply again. There's an SMS verb in Twiml that says reply to a message. So again, some dynamic content looks like you're from wherever we figured out, and that reply will happen. And at the same time, I'm also using this pusher to send a message out, and I'm just kind of mirroring what came in. So I'm going to load up at the same time this index action, which is all it's doing is listening for those messages. So let me load that here. Okay, so was that clear what's happening? Any questions before we kind of kick it off? What I would like everybody to do is take out their phone and send a message to this number, and we will see what happens. And interesting. So what I did was also mask the phone number here just to show the last 4 digits, so nobody got too upset their phone number was put out there. So I did, cool. I brought some Twilio shirts, and I'm going to do a raffle on my own. So if you want to be in the raffle, text your number here. So a little incentive. These 4 digits, you mean? Oh, okay. I see what you mean. So I heard they can't do this demo at the PHP conference because there's too much obscenity that goes on from the crowd. So let me pop open actually Sinatra while this is happening. You can see these posts coming in. Oh, actually, this other stuff is just kind of fuzz on the line. This pub sub stuff is like dirty IP address. A lot of stuff is. We should be able to find SMS, what I call it, handler. SMS incoming. So here's the post. Here's what Dan Mapper is doing. Cool, awesome. And you saw how basic like everything was. Like this is the whole page we're looking at. Very little going on, and we're doing like live communication back. And hopefully you guys are getting the reply actually as well. And just to look quickly, all this being logged here. Okay, any questions? I'm about to do the final demo of the evening. Okay, so the one thing we haven't done is sent a message out. Everything's kind of been incoming. So here is the raffle. So what I've done here is taken from the database all the unique numbers, which is the from parameter, and put them in the random order. Taken the one off the top and said he's the winner, and then sending an SMS to the winner to let him know. And we looked at that down here. This is the Twilio Ruby gem, setting up with the account credentials, creating a new client, and just saying SMS, messages create, and plugging in the parameters from the Twilio site. So let's just take a quick look at the docs. So here it is, post SMS messages from to body. That's it. Send an outgoing SMS message. So we've got that mirrored here. Kind of defaulted in the from number from the number we provisioned from Twilio. So we send the SMS to the winner, and we display here in the output, congratulations. Oh, wait, here it is. Oh, here it is. The big winner is the winner with the number masked. And then for everybody else, we're just showing who lost. Okay. Here we go. Somebody should be buzzing. Anybody? Yeah. Did you get the message? Oh yeah, I had the same thing. Okay. Well, I'll do a bunch more since I have a bunch of shirts. All right, I just did 7, so these 7 people get first dibs on finding a shirt of their size, and then if you still want one, I got plenty. It just might not be in the size you want. So that wraps it for me. Are there any questions?
Did I see in the doc? I noticed in the docs, I think it said that you could only use a from number that was a Twilio provisioned number. Was that right?
So that's correct for SMS. There's basically no way to spoof SMS. It's just not the way the system's set up. For voice numbers, you can use any caller ID that you verify beforehand just to prove you have ownership of it. But that constraint's not there for phone. But for SMS, it needs to come from the Twilio provision number.
Cool.
The Twilio gem you said isn't released yet?
It's
The version you're using?
It's released here in GitHub.
It's up on GitHub?
So I actually have the page up here with some cool examples.
And then you could just do the REST calls directly. You don't need to really load the gem, right?
Yeah, totally. Like you could just make a call using NetHTTP or curl or anything like that. It's really straightforward.
It looked like it was, what was it, 1 cent per minute for incoming calls and 2 cents for outgoing calls.
Correct.
I presume you could connect an incoming call to an outgoing call to make like a phone system. Would that be 3 cents a minute? Is it additive?
Yeah,
or?
so it's by the leg. So we have something called dial, which basically calls out another line and can bridge lines together. So depending on what your use case is, if you're having people dial in to check their account balance, that's a penny. If your app wants to call out to somebody to notify them of something, that's 2 cents. If it's a click to call, if somebody dials in and then we dial out to somebody else and we put them together, that's 3 cents a minute.
Very good.
And I should note about kind of phone systems, we have another product called OpenVBX, and this is an open sourced office phone kind of product. It's kind of a reference app built with Twilio. So it's up on GitHub. It's powered by Twilio, so you put your credential in there, but then you get a really cool system where it's kind of drag and drop to build your call flows. So you don't have to do any code. You can say, for this number, when somebody calls in, play a message, and then dial this person. If they're not there, take a message, and then send them an SMS. And you can all do that through drag and drop, and it's really easy to use. And all this stuff, like you could skin it and resell it, and it's all open. in that way.
So what is the shortcode support like?
So we do have short codes. It's a new product for us, but it's available and we have customers on it. So short code is for a different use case than long code. Long code is intended for person-to-person communications. So the messages should be like usually not all the same. Like if you're doing an email SMS blast, it's probably not right. And if you're like selling something, if it's a marketing message, it should probably be on short code. But if you're doing something like GroupMe and sending a bunch of person-to-person messages, long code is the way to go. The up and down of it is long code is cheaper to get started with. You can get started right away. It's self-service, and it's for person-to-person. But if you're doing a huge volume, you probably want to be in short code. It takes a little while to set up. You have to apply and get it approved. But once it's approved, the cost can be cheaper with volume. You can deliver more messages. And there's essentially spam filters that the carriers put in place for long code that if you're doing marketing, your message can be basically dropped. So if you're on short code, you're basically on a whitelist. So your messages are pretty much guaranteed to get there.
So I'm just wondering, I'm familiar with short code, but can you explain the difference between short and long code?
Sure. Long code is like a phone number. Like you text your friend, you just type their phone number in there and it's 10 digits and it goes. Short code is the thing, text, I want it to 5562. So it's a short code. And it's meant for machine-to-machine communications, like automated notifications or marketing.
Does your short code plays nice with Google Voice too, or not really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything is kind of over the PSTN, which is the public phone network, so it should be totally compatible with just anything that's on the public phone network. So cool. Like I mentioned, there's a $30 credit, and I have other promo codes. If you want to get started, just find me or send me an email, and get you kind of a bonus credit to play around with.